Okay, so I want to explain this billionaire speak to people. Sometimes billionaires talk in secret codes and they don't understand the people don't understand what they're talking about. So Elon Musk says people should go have kids right now and not worry about the money. Um, and lots of rich people on TV are saying this. People are like, I don't understand. What do they mean? What they're saying is like, yeah, if you think that the Child Protective Services should take your kid away and sell your kid to sex slavery because you can't afford the boomer lifestyle. That's what people think. That's what people goes through people's minds when they imagine Child Protective Services. It's like, oh, if you can't afford the boomer lifestyle for your kid, then someone should basically take your kids away and sell them to sex slavery, like how Child Protective Services does, right? And so that's bad. And essentially, if you look at like poor Africans are still having kids, and there are also like really really ridiculously poor people in America that basically pretty much make $0 and pretty much don't make any money, and still are popping out children. And a lot of people say, "Oh, this is idiocracy," but is it really idiocracy, or are some certain very poor people just figuring out something that like most people aren't able to figure out? And billionaires are basically trying to tell us that the latter is the case. That actually there's some kind of trick. There's like a hack to um to how would you say? There's a hack to have kids for $0 that plenty of people all over the world, including the United States, are doing. That like basically white people haven't figured out. So the first part of the hack is to figure out what people in the third world are doing to be able to afford food and do that. In other words, you're going to have to learn recipes instead of DoorDash. You're going to have to learn recipes like how to cook rice and how to cook cheap meat and how to cook vegetables. And you're going to have to get this rice and stuff from like free handouts like the soup kitchen and like the food bank and all this kind of stuff, right? And you're gonna have to subsist off of like this cheap food stamps and stuff, these government programs, and get cheap food like rice and like cheaper meats. You're gonna have to figure out the food economics and actually cook for yourself instead of buying on DoorDash. That's the first thing. People say, wah, that's not ideal. Whatever. The second thing, this video is not meant to appeal to these communistic minds. This is meant to appeal to like a sensible person. So the second thing is that you got to school your child so that Child Protective Services doesn't take them away and sell them into sex slavery. So school is free, and so all you have to do is make sure that your kid can get to school, and then you're golden, right? The next thing is you're gonna have to buy iPads for everybody once every few years. You got to buy the cheap, because you're living on $0. You got to buy the cheap version of the iPad, basically like a cheap $100 Samsung pad. It might be more expensive at the time you're watching this video. And basically the iPad has got entertainment, and the iPad has got education. And when I buy education, I'm not talking about handing your kid an iPad and completely forgetting that your child exists like an idiot. I'm talking about going and finding an actual K through 12 style educational site that will actually literally educate your child in the same way that they would educate your child in school, and force your child to use this educational app and look at their grades on it. And if they don't get good grades, you take away their iPad. And that's like a simple way that you can educate your child for free if for whatever reason they're not able to go to school. So, what was the next thing? I'm trying to remember what the next thing was. So the last part is you have to have sex. Okay? This is the complicated part, and this is what the billionaires don't understand, is that men like understand math. And so men look at the math of the situation and they're like, oh, I'm going to have to live like a third worlder to survive, right? That's true, right? But women only understand culture, and women see that the expectation is so that you should be able to afford to live like how a boomer did during the greatest economic time of the century. And so basically, because they don't understand math, they're like, oh, I don't understand why, why I should live like a third worlder, and they don't get that they're not going to meet their basic reproductive function and like give back to society. They're not going to be able to have kids unless they choose to do this. And so this is not something that I think is good. This is not something that I think is preferable. This is not something that I think is like that is the right way for the world to be. But I'm saying if you literally want to have a kid and if you want to spend $0, then I have good news for you. There's already people that are having kids and spending basically $0 right now. And the way that they're doing that is they're entertaining themselves off of these cheap little iPads, and they're getting the government programs so that they can afford cheap food, like how an African eats with rice and with cheap meat and with I'm not saying meat is cheap. I'm saying there are some meats that are cheaper than others. If you don't understand that some meats are cheaper than others, then you've never been taught how to use a calculator, right? But basically, some meats cost less than others, period. And so, like fish, for example, tuna is very cheap. And so that's basically the way that certain very poor people have continued to succeed to have kids. From now until the end of time, they're going to succeed. And I'll say the algorithm one more time. The first thing is you have to put food into your mouth, and you have to put food into your child's mouth. The second thing is you have to hand your child an iPad, right, so that they'll be entertained and educated, and supervise their iPad use, so that they're not educated into being like a golem, right? The third step is to the third step is to make sure your child attends school. This costs nothing. This costs $0. If you can't figure out that part, then I'm so sorry, but it's such a simple thing. Make sure that your child shows up every day to school, right? The next step is let me try to think what I was saying. And in countries where, like, in any country, like, they have programs for people that are too far away to reach to the school, right? So you're covered there. What was the next step? Oh yeah, you have to have sex. So you have to convince a millennial or Gen Z, or maybe you'll be watching this in the future in Gen Alpha. You have to convince a woman in the West, a Western American or United Kingdom's woman. You have to convince them that if they just decide to live like a poor African and live for $0 and figure out how to live on $0, then, and basically spend nothing except to buy iPads and to buy food. If you do that, then you can have kids. And this is what basically that Elon Musk is saying, is like he doesn't understand the hesitancy of and not just Elon Musk, but many billionaires are talking about this right now. They don't understand the hesitancy of young people of like, why aren't you having kids? When we look at these people who make $0 and they're still having kids. And basically it's a delusion that you need money to have children. You don't. And when you really, really study how poor people actually manage to succeed at surviving and having kids, then you realize that this is true. I can't explain it to you any easier than that. If you don't understand that it's possible to have kids on $0, then just do some research into what I said in this video. I'm correct.